Since it's Thursday, we're going to be only reviewing MLW Fusion 164, where we feature, of course, the MLW Women's Featherweight Championship online, but also developments have been taking place involving Cezar Duran and many other things. As for Impact Wrestling, as you know, we have the first ever Golden Six Shooter Elimination match, who will determine who will be the number one contender to face Josh Alexander at No Surrender, and many other interesting developments have been taking place there too. And of course, we got some news updates to tell what's been going on in the world of pro wrestling. And then finally, to cap things off, I'm going to be doing some Unagi Sayaka Watch. Some interesting developments have been taking place for it in the last couple of weeks. Various stuff, and of course, matches that she already participate, and upcoming matches that will be actually participating in the future. So, let's get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, let's begin with MLW Fusion 164. Now, as you all know, we saw the return of Cezar Duran since that whole predicament that he got himself into, leaving MLW because of that strange calling cards that's been happening. However, it looks more like Cezar Duran is signing people into his own promotion, Lucha Azteca or something like that. This is similar to what we saw with Zelina De La Renta with Dorada Promotions, if you guys remember that. I think they're going with this type of direction that I think is going to be very interesting. However, he did say that he signed someone to his little promotion, and that person, you guys know him all too well, or you guys may know his brother. I'm talking about Sam Adobis, who is, of course, if you guys know him, he is the brother of Corey Graves. I was surprised that he was in it, and I feel like his character does fit perfectly well with, of course, with Cezar Duran being by his side, since he dominated many of the top luchadors in Mexico. But he's facing a guy, I think his name is Johnny Patch. I don't know much about him, but the match was okay. It felt like a perfect introduction to have Sam Adobis into the story, and it was very good. But however, during his post-match comments, he didn't send a message to everyone that was there, that he's there for, you know what, and this and that. But later on, we did see him with Cezar Duran. As you know, Cezar Duran still has some issues with the most awesome wrestler, Microman. They decided to harass him and all that, but luckily Lince Dorado was there to back him up. So there's going to be some interesting developments going on with those two. Now, if you guys remember, Alex Kane, leader of the Bumaye Fight Club, is decided that it's time to rename the Opera Cup into the Oprah Cup. He claims that whoever holds the Opera Cup is the one in charge. He thinks that he's going to be the one to dethrone Alex Kane, thinking that he has the right to do that. But however, the primary owners of the Opera Cup, I'm talking about the Hart family, more specifically Davey Boy Smith, when they asked him to comment, what does he think about Alex Kane? He said, name it what you want, but what you're doing is segregating or dishonoring what that meant to the family. Keep in mind, the last person prior before it was reestablished, the Opera Cup, was Stu Hart, Davey Boy's grandfather. So he felt that that's total disrespect. But sooner or later, we will see that that cup will be returned back to where it's supposed to be. Alex Kane is not the primary owner. We could definitely see a war between the Bumaye Fight Club, along with, of course, Davey Boy and the Billeting Bulldogs. That's going to be fun to watch. Now, as you know, I have reviewed a lot of the Dragon Gate events. We did have, of course, one match they displayed. I just don't remember what day it was or the timing. It was last year at some point. We have the Open the Dream Gate Championship with the challenger Yamato taking on Shun Skywalker when he had a 9-month reign as the Open the Dream Gate champion. So I thought this match was very interesting. I don't know if I don't think I've ever saw it, but I felt like this is a good way for fans who aren't familiarized with Dragon Gate. Now there's been speculations that about, is Dragon Gate and MLW going to be partners? You know, I'm sure that's something that's been discussed upon during who knows how long, but I would love to see that a lot. But in this match, it was Yamato who picked up the win to dethrone Shun Skywalker in this match. Now, I have talked about Richard Holiday before. As you know, all of the MLW events are being taped. I mentioned a while back that the reason we haven't seen Richard Holiday since September was because he was diagnosed with cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma, and that's something that I think many of us did not expect. I'm sure he is trying to stay positive. He said that, you know, that he will kick cancer's ass, and I know many of us are rooting for him. I mean, this is not a joke to deal with, but it's great that he is telling his fans why we haven't seen him, but we're all rooting for him to get back in full recovery and get back in the rings very soon. Now, we see a little teaser with the Samoan SWAT team. As you know, they have plans in mind. We know that Jacob Fatu has a golden opportunity to challenge for the MLW World Heavyweight Championship. But however, we do know that the other members, most specifically Lance and Juicy, they have their sights set on the tag team titles. That is something we definitely can see, but we will see when that day happens. So we don't know what's been going on. We do know that there's been some sort of dissension between both Inji and Duca and Calvin Tankman. So we just got to wait and see what happens then. Now, our main event is the MLW Women's Featherweight Championship. We got Trish Adora, who had an amazing match against Gia Scott. Takes on Taya Valkyrie, our current champion. And, of course, accompanying her is Cezar Duran. Now, you probably ask yourself, what is Cezar Duran is there? Well, as you can tell, he is up to no good, as always. But there was a moment, but I don't know if Taya Valkyrie was aware of it or she just played dumb. We don't know. It appears that Cezar Duran grabbed Gia Scott's foot to ensure that Taya Valkyrie retained the title where it rightfully belongs. It turns out Taya Valkyrie is now signed with Azteca Lucha, and it's like becoming clear, but we don't know how she feels or she's playing along with it. So we just got to wait and see in the upcoming weeks with Taya Valkyrie, and then we'll go on from there. And I think that's pretty much it with MLW. Let's do our last review, Impact Wrestling. Okay, Impact Wrestling. So let's talk about that. It opened up with the X Division title being on the line. We have, of course, not only our champion, the despicable Trey Miguel, taking on none other than the 73-year-old wrestler Mike Jackson. I thought this match was pretty cool because, as you know, some people say this guy should have just stayed out of retirement. But, of course, there's some great moments with Mike Jackson being a wrestler, and I think that's what's really great. Now, people thought, could he had the opportunity to win this title? It is a possibility, but sooner or later, things would have gone into the favor of Trey Miguel when he applied the spiral to finish him off 1, 2, 3, and it was over. However, that wasn't done. Now, you know Trey Miguel's trademark. He goes out, gets his little spray paint, and tried to leave his mark. But, however, he saw something under the ring that kind of spooked him, and that is none other than that crazy Steve, who is playing this sick mind games where he actually spray paint his logo on his torso, and I thought that was like, whoa. And of course, Trey Miguel has no clue what to make of it. But once he saw Black Taurus, he ran to the hills. So we'll see what happens then. Now, our next interview, of course, Gia Miller interviews Josh Alexander. Talk about that there is the Golden Six Shooter match who will be the next challenger to challenge. And all these competitors are all former Impact Wrestling World Champions. So he knows that there's a lot at stake here. He knows that there's a lot on his plate, so he's going to be watching closely. But however, Steve Maclin, who is still determined to have that opportunity to challenge for the Impact title. But the fact is, he made a very compelling point. Josh Alexander has always been protected by none other than Scott D'Amore, but thanks to Bully Ray, who took him out, now that opportunity may not happen. So there's the chance that, of course, Steve Maclin will try to cash in his opportunity against Josh Alexander sooner or later. Now, our next match, we have the Good Hands, those idiots who've been trying to help out Bully Ray, John Schuyler, and Jason Hotch. They take on Kushida and Kevin Knight. It was kind of interesting to see those two again because we know they had a great matches that they did put out in the Super Junior Tag League. But I was surprised how this whole thing went down, giving Kevin Knight put his feet wet in Impact Wrestling. But it took the hoverboard by Kushida onto Jason Hotch to give them the win. Now, as you know, we have our current Director of Authority, Santino Marella. He actually introduced, of course, the tag team partner for Giselle. Now, we didn't know who it was, but it would make sense. But Jerry Vidal realized who it was. I'm like, okay, who was going to be the partner? We didn't know. So we skipped to that so that we jump into the Knockouts tag team titles. And then, of course, is the Death Dolls of Tail Valkyrie and Jessica taking on none other than not only Giselle, someone you all know clearly, Tara, or as we knew her as Victoria back in WWE. So she showed up. But the obvious question did ask, can Giselle get along? Much of the entirety of this match, it was more like Giselle was taking all the work. Tara was asking for a tag. No. But she did got gory bombed by Giselle, got gory bombed by her. This was the price to pay. But until the sick driver was the one that sealed the deal. So this is what happens. I don't think anybody wants to team up with her. So we'll just have to see. Now, as you know, since Hard to Kill, we know that Jordynne Grace and Mickie James did had each other's backs last week. But however, Jordynne Grace does have something in her pocket, and that is, of course, her rematch clause. So that is something we probably can see somewhere down the line. Now, recently we've been seeing Taylor Wilde with her new gimmick as a witch. But apparently now it appears she has someone in her gaze, and that is none other than Killer Kelly. I think this is going to be one interesting match between those two. I'm like, book it. I want to see it happen. So we're just going to wait and see what happens. Now, we did see Marella and, of course, the Gurkha, the guy from Busted Open Radio, talking. But however, Bully Ray, who came up short during Hard to Kill, he questioned Morella's why was he not included in the Golden Six Shooter. Now, it wasn't personal for Marella. He just viewed this more like, you just lost. You lost to Josh Alexander. You tapped out. And he goes out. Did you see he cheated by sending his wife? But I don't think Santino is not worried about that. He knows that he had Hotch and Schuyler by his side. But this is nothing personal for Santino. It was more like he's seeing the facts. Bully, you lost the match. That's how it goes. We move on from it. Try to put the next person in line. So Bully Ray feels that he was being disrespected. But this has nothing to do with politics. It was more like, okay, fact is, Bully lost, next challenger. That's how it goes. But of course, LaGreca actually agrees with Santino, but he doesn't know how to handle him, but the only person who can is Tommy Dreamer. Now, our next interview, we saw something very interesting coming up. Now, Tasha Steelz, as you know, she's not happy with things that have been going. But, however, it appears that now tensions have been rising between both her and Savannah Evans. But Tasha doesn't want to get into that topic. We know she's not been happy with a few things, not only with the knockouts titles, but also that she did not get the win to try to get even with Mickie James. So that is something we still haven't seen yet. But there is the possibility that they could split the two. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, as you know, the major players have been trying to make a play for the tag team titles. But as you know, they were eliminated in that four-way elimination match by the Bullet Club, more consistent Ace Austin and Chris Bay. So this match is more like a payback for that particular time. But the obvious question does take, can this match put them on the map for a tag team title contingency? That is something we can see. But however, we cannot ignore Ace and Bay, who have an amazing tournament at the Super Junior Tag League last year. And I think that's something you cannot ignore. But you probably would have assumed, there was going to be some dirty tricks. But this time, it did not. It was the cohesiveness with Bay and Austin that gave them the win by applying a very good pinfall by Ace to Cardona. But however, as soon as we saw that the match won by the Bullet Club, they could most likely see there'd be the next challengers for the tag titles. But however, here comes Joe Hendry out of the blue. And he made a song. And I thought the song was hilarious. And the one thing that came out is that they're calling both Myers and Cardona, there'll be nothing more than Edge's bitch. If you guys remember, they were actually that tag team that actually sided with Edge all those years ago, and I thought it was hilarious. And of course, the major players were livid to hear that, and you can hear the audience were saying, "Edge's bitch, Edge's bitch," and I thought it was so funny. I just couldn't stop laughing. I almost fell to the ground for that. Now, as soon as that happened, they went up to Moose and told him that he was right. That Joe Hendry is the reason they're falling down in their success. So they decided to do something about it, and Moose was pleased with himself. Now, our next match, we have Jonathan Gresham taking on a guy coming from Canada named Sheldon Jones. Now, you know this type of match would fall in favor of Jonathan Gresham until he did like an elbow back on his head. That kind of sealed the deal for him. Now, for our golden six-shooter elimination match, we have, of course, Moose, Rich Swann, Rhino, Chris Sabin, Sami Callihan, and Eddie Edwards. All of these guys are, of course, former Impact Wrestling World Champions. And I thought this match was pretty interesting. We had, I think I lost control. Let me look it up real quick. Who got? I'm going to try to look it up real quick because I know I saw it earlier. Who actually got eliminated? Nope, I did not. Well, let's just talk about which certain parts of the matches. We know Moose got rid of Rhino, but the one that was crazy was Eddie Edwards. When we thought he could have this match won, he was eliminated by Rich Swann after PCO shows up out of the blue. But the last two competitors in the ring was none other than Sami Callihan and Rich Swann. This was something interesting because these two guys knew each other from years ago, and that kind of put Rich Swann in a state of mind like, this is not the same Sami I remembered. But it was Rich Swann that picked up the win by pinning Callihan. But the design, as you know, we're not tolerating this. Instead of try to punish Sammy. They decided to try to take out Swan. Yuya Uemura comes out to deal with them, and then here comes Kazarian and Alexander, who will not tolerate, of course, the design being there, trying to undermine the fact, yes, Rich Swann is the #1 contender. I'm sure we're going to see that story between all these individuals in a 8-man tag match possibly next week or two. We don't know. So I think that's pretty much it with Impact Wrestling. I believe it's time to move on with some news updates. Okay, so welcome to our news updates right now. Now, some interesting things have been appeared in Fightful Select, so we're going to talk about it. Mercedes Mone, formerly known as Sasha Banks, have talked about she felt that she did everything in WWE, accomplishing all the things, being the women's tag team champions, winning both Raw and SmackDown titles. But she felt that now that she moving on to her next goal is to wrestle in Japan. Now, keep in mind, WWE have that impression, believing she'll be back once she's done with this whole thing. It doesn't seem like she wants that. Like, she wants to fulfill. Like, she's wrestling the same people over and over. I think we got to ask ourselves, do we really want to see her keep wrestling those people over and over? Obviously not. But she even made some good compliments about the matches that she had witnessed. Like, for example, the Wrestle Kingdom 17 between Tam and Kairi. She said that was a pretty good match. But she does like how emotional Tam can get. In, like, she saw her crying right after because she saw what a interesting wrestler. And I think Tam is one of those wrestlers that is on her radar. But we will see when that time comes. We still yet to see her at a Stardom show. We know that she will be facing Kairi later on next month for the IWGP Women's title. So we'll see what happens then. Now, this also was reported by Fightful Select. For a while, we haven't seen one particular wrestler, or should I say a particular dinosaur. We're talking about Luchasaurus. Now, why we haven't seen him? Well, it was revealed that Luchasaurus and AEW are being sued by Composite Effect over the copyright of Luchasaurus' mask. So that's the whole thing what's been going on. Apparently, there's been lawsuits, legal issues towards Luchasaurus' mask, this and that. That would explain why we haven't seen him. Now, keep in mind, like, if that's the reason, that it would make sense that they have to deal with this first. Now that we haven't heard, Fightful Select hasn't heard anything from Luchasaurus or AEW. I'm sure they're trying to keep this under wraps until this thing is resolved, because I'm sure that Luchasaurus is what we want to see him back in the ring, but this has to come out. But we still don't know when it's going to be. But hopefully things can work out between both, from all parties on this particular matter. Now, recently, also another report coming from Fightful Select, Doudrop. There was a real reason we haven't seen her in WWE television for quite some time, due to some health scare due to the COVID symptoms that she had. So she had COVID, she was scared, and I understand that because people get scared over certain things, like you saw there's some sort of mole, you weren't sure. Here's the thing. My mom got scared because a few years back, there was I injured myself on my left ankle on a bike accident, and there's a big ball coming up. She thought it was cancer, and I told no, I got injured in that foot, and she didn't want to believe that. So just to to put her scaredness at ease, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna get an MRI just to put her at ease. So I did the MRI. A week or two later, I did get the results. Everything was fine. So basically, it was nothing too serious. I even had the doctor explain this to my mom. So that's how it is. I understand that kind of scare you get when it comes to your health, and it's normal. But if you're scared, then you got to check that out. Trust me, that is something you need to do first. Now, as you know, we've been talking about the Queen of Indies. We already announced 2 participants that will take place for the first time ever. We got, of course, coming from Marvelous, the head boss, Shigusa Nagayo, who will be there. And recently, our new development is, of course, Unagi Sayaka, who I will be talking about in the Unagi Sayaka Watch a little later. But recently, they just announced another participant, and she's going to be coming out out of retirement for one day, for one night only, and that is none other than Nicole Savoy. We know that she had said that she was retiring, so hopefully we'll get, for those who never seen her, you're in for a treat. But if it's only one night over, at least one night only, at least we'll get to enjoy it. Now, for all you guys who are big fans of Lucha Libre and all that stuff, it was already announced that Juventud Guerrera will be here in my neck of the woods in San Diego, California, for SoCal Pro Wrestling. So if you guys are anywhere of the region of Southern California, yes, he's going to be here. He's going to be participating with the promotion SoCal Pro Wrestling, and that will take place in February 25th. So if you guys are interested, check it out. You can go on the Twitter page or whatever social media they're in. Check out SoCal Pro Wrestling. Now, I did mention GLEAT has their upcoming event for the LIDIT UWF version 3 that will take place in March. They already announced for the matches that will be taking place. Here are the matches that were announced for that. We have Maya Fukuda versus Yura Suzuki. This is more of a rematch that's going to take place. Then we got Tetsuya Izushi taking on Shinya Aoki. Yu Iizuka versus Minoru Tanaka. We got Seishi Ikimoto taking on Hideki Shriek Sikin. Tag match. We have Kaz Hayashi and Ronin Fujiwara versus Tatsuaki Nakano and Daichi Hashimoto. Then we have Takanori Ito versus Dan Tamura, and then finally Soma Watanabe versus Hikaru Sato. So those are the matches that will take place for the GLEAT event, LIDIT UWF Rules version 3. I'm kind of looking forward to see how that goes out. Now, interesting developments. Have you guys may remember in Japan, there was no cheering allowed. I mean, plotting is allowed, but not cheering. This guy who I've been following on Twitter, who does a little bit of the translations in pro wrestling, especially, that did reveal that the Japanese government are planning to lift the capacity restriction. Now, keep in mind, there's limited restrictions of people of capacity, how many people can come into a venue, and all this and that, and of course the cheering and that. So it could be lifted at any time soon, and they're saying that people are allowed to cheer and pack in any venue. So we will be seeing that change happen soon. So I'll be following that as much as possible. Now, for the next Prestige Wrestling that's going to take place on March 21st, we have Alex Shelley. He will be making his appearance there too. JCW for the G-Cup that will take place on the 11th of February. Another opening round match has been announced. We have Christian Blake versus Alec Price. Now, I'm invested in this match completely because we have seen how Blake Christian has turned out to be recently. Now, as you guys may have heard, DDT Pro Wrestling are coming to the US. They will be doing part of the WrestleMania weekend at LA. So if you guys are determined to go see them, go. But they have announced which wrestlers will be participating in this particular event. Here are the names that they announced. We have our current we got a current KOD Openweight champion, Kasusada Iguchi, Jun Akiyama, Mao, Shunma Katsumata, Shinjiro Takagi, Konosuke Takeshita, but he will only participate on March 30th, Tetsuya Endo, Yuki Ueno, Chris Brooks, Saki Akai, Yuki Ino, then Shuko Dino, and the DGC winner, Michael Nakazawa and Yoshihiko. So these are the wrestlers that will participate in the American shows here on WrestleMania week. But I was surprised to hear that Takeshita will only participate for the 30th. I wouldn't be surprised if he's already booked for the 31st at another event on that particular week. So that would make sense why. So we'll see. If you guys want to see them, these are the ones who will participate at the collective of this year on WrestleMania weekend. Now, for our GCW updates, for our Holy Smoke event, we did announce that Joey Janela will be in a match against Venny, who we all know in Japan known as Asuka. So that's going to be an interesting match. And another match was booked for the Eye for an Eye event on the 17th of March. We got Homicide taking on Matt Cardona. Let's see if he's ready for a guy like Homicide. Now, this one I kind of, how do I say, did not actually talk about this. If you guys remember Ricky Shane Page or RSP from 440, as you know, we haven't seen him in any of the Circle 6 promotions. Now, he gave his little reasons why he's not there. It turns out that there's been creative differences between him and whoever he's working with in Circle 6, but he didn't hold any grudges. He just felt that it was time for him to go and all this other stuff. But he did said that he wished nothing for the best for Circle 6. But he said he's going to focus on himself as a pro wrestler, and then maybe down the line in the future, he will be doing some backstage stuff. And I'm sure that's something that many wrestlers would like to do. I mean, it's a good learning experience for RSP for him to do, and now just focus himself as a wrestler. So we'll see what happens then. Now, for our last update, we got AEW. As you know, Dynamite had a very impressive night. Of course, not to mention we had Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal paying tribute to Jay Briscoe after his passing. It turns out that they had about 1 million viewers that watched it. I was like, whoa, that is impressive. So they reached that mark. And of course, their ratings was 0.32. I have to say, is really good. Now, interesting developments have now developed with AEW. They have signed a multi-year, multi-territory deal with DAZN, is DAZN, DAZN, and this particular group will be broadcasting their events in the Europe and Asia territory. I know that AEW has been looking for ways to expand their broadcasting, like Latin America and all that other stuff. It would make sense. DAZN will be that one group that can do it. I know they're trying to express more in Europe and Asia, so we'll see what happens then. So good for them. And I think that's pretty much it. So I believe it's time for the Unagi Sayaka Watch. Okay, guys, so welcome to the Unagi Sayaka Watch. It's been a while since I did one completely, so let's talk about it. Now, as you know, recently I have announced that Unagi Sayaka will be coming to the U.S. for the first time ever. She'll be participating Queen of Indies on May 13th. I know Unagi has talked about recently in the past about coming overseas, and there's still talk. There was talk that there was talking about her coming for WrestleMania weekend. That is still undetermined yet. We haven't heard anything back, but I will put a pin on that. But this one is very huge. As you know, Queen of Indies is the first ever event that was being produced by both West Coast and Pro Wrestling Revolution. This is more of another idea after the King of Indies that they had last year, and they are going to do that this year as well. But having Queen of Indies is going to be great. I did announce, of course, Chigusa Nagaya, who was the first announced, and then recently we just had Nicole Savoy. But Nagaya was like, cannot believe that Unagi is going to be here, so I thought that's going to be interesting. But Queen Amina seems as happy that she's going to be in this because she wants to have another crack with her since she had that time limit draw with her at Marvelous earlier this month. Now, if you guys may have heard some interesting things with Unagi, it turns out that she was auditioning for a casting role for Yakuza slash Like a Dragon. And I don't know what the whole thing is. I don't know if it's a movie or TV series. But here's the thing that comes to mind. She showed up to the audition in her wrestling gear. Now, I cannot recall any wrestler who auditioned for a role showed up in wrestling gear. That is something I never heard of. But Unagi will be Unagi. That's something that Tam would normally say about her. Not out of disrespect, but more as like understanding. Unagi is Unagi. Now, as you know, I mentioned about the Shoe Pro Fan Awards. It was already ranked for Unagi. She's been ranked as 8th of the most popular wrestler. But however, she was also ranked number 7th in the overall. So this is kind of interesting. Keep in mind, the only reason she was ranked in the 1 to 10 numbers, she made a huge buzz when she announced that she was leaving Stardom and going freelancing. But keep in mind, she did state it that she's not leaving Cosmic Angels, and she still is a member of the Cosmic Angels after her little debacle with Mina Shirakawa. So it's great that she is in the top 10 for all you fans out there. Now, as you know, she had some matches that she took place. Our first one is for Marvelous. There was a three-way match that took place on the 17th of January. It was her taking on Riko Kawahara and her former mentor, Yuna Manaze. I thought the match was pretty good, but in this case, you probably would have thought Unagi would have went. No, it was Yuna Manaze who picked up the win when she pinned Riko Kawahara. I will put that video down the line, but this one I haven't seen yet. Another three-way that just recently took place on the 25th of January. We did have, of course, another three-way. We have not only Unagi involved, we have her friend, and currently to her, Rina Amikura. She calls Unagi her best friend, but her other opponent is someone you guys know, Coyote Yoneyama. But here's the interesting, funny part. Unagi got in her face and tells her, "You look familiar." If you guys know what I'm talking about, you know Kato Yanayama, who she is in Stardom. She is Fukigen Death. So basically, she's like saying, "That's not me." So I thought it was hilarious. I haven't seen the match, but there was people talking about that on Twitter. So I would love to see it. But I will put that when it comes out. I will explain more about that match on the next Unagi Sayaka Watch segment. But it was Coyote Yoneyama who picked up the win on Arena Amikura. I'm like, strange. None of these three-way matches, they pin Unagi. I don't know why. But yes. But our final match that we will talk about, she was in a match in World Woman Pro Wrestling Diana. And she takes on Nanami, which is, whoa, I did not expect that. But Nanami did pretty good. I haven't seen the match yet, but I will review that once I get to see it, once it's uploaded on YouTube. Now let's talk about the upcoming matches she will be having. This is going to be in order for which matches she's in. It's part of her schedule, I believe. On January 29th, she'll be teaming with Nanami, the opponent she win. I know what you guys are thinking. If you guys have been Stardom fans, you guys probably will say, wait a minute. Isn't Nanami a member of God's Eye? Yes. It is strange that you got one member who represents Cosmic Angels teaming up with another member from God's Eye. But their opponents is none other than Kyoko Inoue and Deborah Kay. So I'm looking forward to see how that match will go. This will take place on the 29th of January, so we're getting there sooner. Now, as you know, Unagi made her presence known in GLEAT, calling out Michiko Miyagi, but however, she will be facing against one of Michiko's, I could say she's her protege. We have Yakari Hosokawa, who we haven't seen for quite some time. She went to finish her exams, and now that she's back, so she will be facing Unagi on the 15th of February for the G Pro Wrestling version 47, I believe that's the one, and I'm looking forward to that. Now, finally, Unagi will finally get her hands on one particular wrestler that she had her sights on. We're talking about Tiger Queen. She had met her at last year in October when there was that 8-person tag match she was in, which eventually Unagi lost in the losing team. But she said that she wants to face Tiger Queen. Apparently, she will be in a match against her, but it will be another 3-way match against another wrestler she hasn't faced before, but she's looking forward to it. And I'm talking about Tai Humna, who will be there too. This is going to be part of the Strong Style Pro Wrestling on the 22nd of February. So mark that down. And also, we are going to see her make another appearance, but this time on March 5th at Corkin Hall for Pro Wrestling 01. And this is going to be a tag match. We're going to see her against Jungle Kiona. Yes, folks, Jungle Kiona is going to make another appearance down there. And it's going to be interesting now. She's going to be wrestling at another promotion. She teams up with Jaguar Yokota. And Unagi will be in a tag match. But however, we still don't know who her tag partner is. Now, fans are already speculating it could be Sayori Inouye. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case because I know she's made friends along the way since she stepped in as a freelancer, other than AOI, Yurika Oka, and possibly Sayori Inouye. So I would like to see that, but we'll just gotta wait and see until that day. And then finally, Unagi will finally get the one opponent that she's been dying to get her hands on in Marvelous. I'm talking about Takumi Iroha. Now, if you remember clearly, ever since she made her debut in her appearance in Marvelous, she has one particular wrestler in her sight, and I'm talking about none other than Takumi Iroha, but Takumi was out of action because of an injury. She will make her return to the ring later on in February for the RCW Spain for the World Cup. However, because of Takumi's injury, as soon as that match is over on February 18th at RCW, apparently from what Nagayo said, she has to go back to rehab to get 100% better. So looks like Unagi has to wait a little longer until she gets that match, and it will happen on the 10th of March. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's pretty much it. What we have with everything with Unagi taking place. So I think that's pretty much what we're gonna do. So let's just call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, we have, of course, AEW Rampage. I'm looking forward to it. And, of course, we're going to see who levels up on the NXT Level Up show. And if there's any other wrestling shows I'm going to be reviewing, I'll put that out as soon as possible. I still got some of the GCW stuff that I haven't reviewed yet, but I'll get to that as soon as possible. So for right now, I'll see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day. Bang.